1965 to 1967. I joined the 4th Battalion, 23rd Infantry, 25th Division in Hawaii in early March of 1966. And I thought I was going to do 18 months in Hawaii, and I figured that was a pretty good deal. And then about two and a half weeks after I was there, the whole division got movement orders to Vietnam. And April 15th, 66, we boarded a ship, the USS General Walker, sticks in my mind, and it was a 14-day cruise, the last one I've been on, by the way, and we arrived in country April 29th of 66. And we were assigned to the base camp at Kuchi, and took a while to get our supplies because they came over on the ship in the Conex containers, they're called, and so we were issued our M16s that we actually received in Hawaii, but they took them away from us. And we landed just like they did in World War II, climbing over the edge of the ship, for the Navy guys, and climbing down the ropes, and with no weapons. We landed on shore with no weapons. We were put on deuce-and-a-half trucks, and there was one sergeant was put on each truck with and handed out M16 rifles, which included no clips, and he had a box of clips and a case of ammunition, and he was told, do not crack it open unless we get attacked. Well, if you ever try to put 20 rounds in a magazine, it takes a long time. So, and we arrived at base camp, and we were straight leg infantry, so it means we walked, rode Huey helicopters a lot. Then in December, they were looking to make another unit mechanized. And since the unit I joined in Hawaii came down from Alaska, Fort Richardson, they were mechanized up there. So 3 days before Christmas, I was one of the lucky ones selected to go down to the docks, pick out the tracks, and for the first time ever, drove one and drove it back to base camp about 32 miles. And they're unarmed, and there's a guy in each third track with an M16 rifle. We had our M16s, but we were driving, and we were told to don't stop for anything. If a dog runs out in front of you, it's a dead dog. Well, somebody asked, well, what about a human? He says, you don't stop for anything. So you can read what they said in there. And we went back to base camp, and we got back on Christmas Day, 1966. And the guys that were on duty were told to take a shower, get in some clean clothes, and be in the motor pool in 30 minutes. And we all went down to the Bob Hope show. That was our reward, which was pretty neat. And then in January, we started going on operations with tracks. And when you go out with tracks, you stay for multiple days, weeks, whatever it is. And you just go in on what's called stand downs for repairs and things like that. If you had to go back, they'd chopper you in back and forth. And then it was about 10 days before I ETS'd out of Vietnam. You had to come in and you had to clear post, division, battalion, company, everything, turn in your weapon and everything, and went down to Benoit Air Force Base. And we were there for just a day and a half, and got on the airplane, and they said, we're going to take off fast, because they have been fired upon before, and left country, and you heard a cheer on that plane like you wouldn't believe. Stopped briefly in Okinawa for fuel, landed in California, and we had a lieutenant colonel that was in charge of our flight, who he was going home also. And he was the first one off the plane, got out on his hands and knees and kissed the ground. That I remember that forever. And then it was off to get new clothes. bunch of us drove to the airport in a cab, rode in a cab, and took a flight to Chicago. Got in like at 2 in the morning, and about 7 in the morning, or I don't remember the exact time, caught a flight to Minneapolis where my wife met me at the airport, her and her cousin. That were the only people, by the way. Came in so early, there was the demonstrators and all that hadn't really gotten going yet in '67. And so then I was home for a month. Had to go down to Fort Hood, Texas till October. And got out of the service in Fort Hood, Texas, and we drove all night home, the two of us. So it was a memorable experience. And then a lot of memories. And about, in fact, 2008, I went to my first reunion because I had no thought of ever going to one. I don't want to, And I met some of the nicest people in the world, and guys that I didn't serve with, just a couple that I served with. The other ones were there like a year and a half later, and actually we have a reunion in 2 weeks. And this year it's in Minnesota at Pequot Lakes. Last year was in Gettysburg. We've been to Oklahoma, Texas, Arizona, Georgia, South Carolina. We go all over for reunions. Pennsylvania. So it's nice to see the people, and you keep in contact with them all year long. So it was, I've always told my wife, I wouldn't take $1 million for the experience I had, but you couldn't give me $50 million to do it again. So, how many times, the old saying, how many times you want to roll the dice,